When people move to Sweden, they often think that learning the language or dealing with the weather is going to be the hardest thing. But the hardest thing usually is something that's invisible. The unspoken rules that if no one explained them to you, you could break them and not even realize that you've broken a social norm. So we're going to talk about those rules. Sweden is not a bad place at all. In fact, it's one of the best functioning societies on this beautiful planet. But Sweden runs on a very different and unique social operating system. One that if you had not grown up here in this country, you may not be aware of all the nuances. And these social norms affect how people communicate with one another, behave, and if you're not aware of this, you may feel like you just don't fit in or click. So if you're thinking about moving to Sweden, or you already have, these kinds of things really matter a lot more than some people actually realize. So let's talk about 10 cultural unique aspects of Swedish culture. First is the word lagom. If you've never heard of this, it means just enough, you could say, or just right. Think Goldilocks. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And this idea permeates everywhere in society, and you hear people using this word in everyday Swedish. It affects how people work, talk, dress, behave, and interact with one another. Whereas coming from a culture, say, from the Middle East or the United States, where standing out is something that is applauded and celebrated, it can come off as being too loud, too opinionated, or arrogant here in Sweden. And it can even make people feel uncomfortable. But of course, trying hard to disappear is not good either. So the goal is balance. So if you come from a culture that accepts self-promotion and rewards boldness, Lagom can feel limiting at times. Number 2, Jantelagen, or the law of Janta. Now this is closely linked to the word lagom, or just right, and Janta is not a real law, but it might as well be. So the basic premise of Jantelagen is don't think that you are better than other people, which sounds pretty good. Success is downplayed, achievements are softened, and confidence is kept quiet. This is why Swedes often sound modest to the point of self-deprecation. Give them a compliment and see how they react. And for many immigrants, like those coming from the United States, this may feel very confusing because what may feel like healthy self-confidence somewhere else comes off as arrogance here in Sweden. Number 3, Åsiktskorridoren, or the opinion hallway. Now this one's extremely important, and it's one that not a lot of people feel comfortable talking about. The idea is simple. There is a fairly narrow range of opinions that are allowed to be expressed publicly. And if you step outside this opinion hallway, something interesting happens. People won't usually argue with you, shout at you, or confront you. They just get really quiet. They stop engaging. Conversations end, social warmth disappears, and doors quietly close. In Sweden, disagreement does not usually start arguments, it ends conversations. And of course, freedom of speech absolutely exists in Sweden, but freedom from social consequences, that's a little more complicated. Number 4, fika culture. This one a lot of people do know about, but there's a lot of nuance to it that many don't. Some just say, well, fika is just having some coffee or hot tea and something sweet to eat with a friend or coworker. But it's much more than that. Fika is where social relationships are built. In fact, your first date may actually be a fika. People fika at work, and friends meet together for fika. This is where social walls come down. Just a little bit. And here's the part that most immigrants miss. It's one thing to skip maybe one fika invitation, but if you make a habit of doing this, especially say in the workplace, this is not taken lightly. It can be viewed as that you are just antisocial and do not want to be part of the group. In Sweden, belonging is often quiet, but fika is one of the doors in. Number 5, conflict avoidance and indirect communication. Sweden is also a very conflict-avoidant culture. People generally prefer harmony over confrontation. And that means that communication can feel indirect at times. We'll see might mean no, and silence can mean disagreement, and a polite smile does not always mean that they are in agreement with you. And for immigrants, this can be a bit frustrating, especially if you are one that is used to people speaking straight to the point, Problems here can exist without ever clearly being named, and you are expected to read between the lines even if no one ever taught you how. I know for myself as a neurodivergent individual that this can be quite challenging. Number 6, silence is polite. And this leads into something that many misinterpret, and that silence is not a bad thing here in Sweden. It's not necessarily awkward, though those that come from more loud, talkative cultures may feel a bit uncomfortable. Silence is a form of respect. Small talk with strangers can be rare, especially depending on which part of Sweden you live. Elevators are usually quiet. Public transportation is often quiet, except maybe Friday night after everyone's getting off work, or perhaps on the weekend after everyone's having a good time. Then all of a sudden, that silence is gone. And Swedes often look at unnecessary communication as intrusion, not friendliness. Number 7, personal space is sacred. This is a big one. Swedes keep a physical distance. At bus stops, train stations, you can even be waiting for a bus in the freezing cold and see a bench where there's plenty of room for more than one person. Only one will sit in that bench and everyone else will stand looking on. If you sit next to someone on a bus, it could genuinely stress them out. And again, this is not rejection, it's just respect for one's personal boundaries. Number 8, Unwritten, the right to roam. And this is a really cool one that's not just limited to Sweden, but even other Scandinavian countries have this. You can walk through the forest, pick berries, pick mushrooms, even sometimes temporarily camp somewhere. But you do this with responsibility. You make sure to pick up after yourself and make it look as if you were never there. Don't leave trash. Don't leave the residues of a camping site. Sometimes you can even camp on private property. But the main idea is don't disturb and don't destroy. And this reflects a society with deep trust in one another, understanding that freedom works if everyone behaves well. Number 9, seasonal personality shift. A lot of immigrants don't understand how much the seasons affect people here in Sweden. In winter, people in Sweden are inward, quiet, reserved. Summer Sweden is relaxed, more open, and almost unrecognizable compared to winter Sweden. This shift is normal, but to someone who's new here, this may be something that you take personal. Perhaps you notice that people just come off as grumpy or rude or introverted in the wintertime. But then come back and meet them in 6 months, and it may seem like you're meeting a totally different person. Number 10, midsummer. This is a holiday that is not common in countries like the United States. This is when the summer sun is at its height, and it's the longest day of the year. There's flower crowns, drinking lots of alcohol, and singing weird songs, as well as dancing around a pole. It's one of the few days in the year that Sweden suspends Lagom. None of these things are bad or good, but they are real differences, and one who is moving to Sweden or already lives here, if they want to integrate in society and feel like they are part of it, must understand these norms. Otherwise, it can feel like you just never quite fit in. If you're looking for help in moving to Sweden, like I did, I am Brandon. I am a nurse who moved here over 4.5 years ago and learned Swedish, got my nursing license, and came into the system here. And I know it's difficult navigating that. If you are also a healthcare worker and interested in moving to Sweden, but come from outside the European Union and just really don't know how to get started, make sure to see the link in my bio where I offer one-on-one coaching to assist you in that endeavor. I also have a link to my Facebook page where you can connect with others that are doing the same. And as always, thanks. Continue to be kind to yourself and to others.